Hey everybody, my name is Allie Wilson. I'm the Director of Development with Pisgah Legal Services, and we're here today on Giving Tuesday. So Giving Tuesday actually started back in 2012 with a simple premise of a day that encourages people to do good. And since then, it's grown into a global generosity movement that unleashes the power of people to transform their communities. And so on this Giving Tuesday, we wanted to illustrate what the power of philanthropy means at Pisgah Legal by diving into the work that we do that's made possible because of community support. And the best way to do that is by talking with our attorneys who are on the front lines every day, living out our mission to pursue justice through legal aid and advocacy. So today I'm happy to be joined by two of our attorneys. So I'm joined by Molly, who is a staff attorney and our program director for our consumer law program. Hey, Molly.
Hey, Allie.
Hey. And also KaDeidra, who is a staff attorney based in one of our outer counties. Hey there, KaDeidra.
Hi, Allie.
So we just have a few questions that we're going to go through to kind of dive into the work that you all are doing and give folks a sense of what that looks like. So Molly, I'll start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about the type of work that you do at Pisgah Legal on a daily basis?
Sure, yeah. So my work is focused on consumer protection and housing law, and it's focused on securing basic needs for low-income people. And that generally means foreclosure defense and eviction defense. We see a lot of people, unfortunately, right now who are in danger of losing their homes or are actively losing their homes. And we focus on helping them find resources and legal solutions to try to avoid those devastating consequences.
And KaDeidra, what about you?
So I am on both the housing team as well as the domestic violence team. On the housing team, similar to Molly, we do a lot of eviction defenses, landlord-tenant issues with a special focus on homelessness prevention. On the domestic violence team, we assist victims of abuse with getting domestic violence protective orders, also called restraining orders or 50Bs. We also assist victims of abuse with custody orders, legal separation, and divorce matters.
So you both are representing clients who are facing extreme crisis, even during the best of times. And I'm sure it's made even harder during this pandemic that is just going on. Um, can you talk about how the pandemic has impacted the lives of your clients? Maybe KaDeidra, we could start with you.
Yeah, so definitely. I think that, on both the housing front and the domestic violence front, right now I'm seeing a lot of clients who do not feel that they can leave certain situations, and understandably so. I think that already under ordinary circumstances, it's really hard to leave a familiar situation for the unknown. And that unknown has been kind of magnified by the pandemic, because the unknown is now even more unknown than we could have ever imagined at the beginning of the year. So I think, especially on the housing front, we're seeing people who can acknowledge, my living situation is not the best, but, especially in some of our outer counties, there are not a lot of rental options available. So I really do not have anywhere to go unless I go to this communal living space, which is being discouraged to slow the spread of COVID-19.
Molly, what about you? How has the pandemic impacted the lives of your clients that you've been working with?
I'm seeing a lot of the same situations that KaDeidra is. One factor, a lot of the housing clients that we work with are living in really poor substandard conditions, homes with a lot of, leaks that cause mold, a lot of other dangers. And we're seeing that people, because they're spending so much more time at home, are having greater health impacts of those kinds of conditions. So somebody who had a mold problem in the home, that was bad enough when they went out to work or their kids went to school every day. But when the whole family is at home, the health consequences of that are really magnified. We're seeing more, consequences of asthma, headaches, lung problems, which of course are even scarier right now. And then, related to what KaDeidra mentioned, it's harder to find other options. It's hard to go out and look for houses. Folks who might have had a safety network that they could rely on, the other people in their lives are also being impacted. So they can't move in with family. They can't ask family for loans. It's harder to find jobs because frankly, there are just fewer jobs. So it's a lot harder for people to get themselves out of a hole that they find themselves in, and harder for people to, make the choices that we would all like to make for our own families if we were in these kinds of situations.
And have either of you had a client whose story has really stuck with you during these times that you've worked with and been able to maybe have a different outcome than what they would have had if they hadn't come to Pisgah Legal?
Sure, I can share. I've had a couple of clients who have come to us really facing significant financial difficulty because of job loss related to COVID. And some of those folks we've been able to work with. One that comes to mind in particular was facing the loss of his home that had been left to him by his mother. And he was having difficulty dealing with the bank that held the mortgage on that because things had never been quite figured out after his mother passed with getting the home retitled in his name. And he was just kind of lost in the paperwork and was having a lot of anxiety because of everything that was going on. And we were eventually able to get that straightened out for him, to find him some resources to help get caught up on some of the mortgage and to get him some of the federal CARES Act relief that gives him a forbearance on making mortgage payments while he figures out what his next step is. So that one really felt good to be able to help with all those different layers of that situation, and was a good outcome for him.
Right. And you can imagine for him just having an attorney, having an advocate on his side to navigate, because that's so much bureaucracy and, just navigating that system when you don't know.
And it's hard enough at the best of times, but right now the last thing he wants to do is go poke around in the courthouse and try to figure out if he can find the right records and, argue with a lender on the phone for hours to try and figure out what paperwork he needs and all that kind of stuff that, regular people just shouldn't have to deal with. That's what lawyers are for.
So throughout the day today, we're sharing stories of impact about the work that Pisgah Legal is doing. And one of those stories is about a client named Tracy, who KaDeidra was actually one of your clients that you worked with this year. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with Tracy and what work y'all did together?
Yes, so when Tracy and I met, she had recently lost her job, and she was living in a pretty toxic living environment where she just wasn't happy. Due to the job loss, she fell behind on rent, and her landlord actually filed to evict her for the non-payment. We went to court. We were actually able to get her eviction dismissed under the federal eviction moratorium because she did meet the requirements. The eviction was dismissed, and we were also able to work out a settlement agreement with her landlord that allowed her to save up some money so that she could ultimately move out of the environment where she wasn't happy in. And so we actually heard back from Tracy after she had moved into her new place. She had actually told someone else about the protection under the CDC order. So, word of mouth is incredibly important. So she was able to, help out a neighbor just from the help that we were able to give her. So it was really amazing to hear that.
And what is one piece of advice that you'd like to share with the audience for people to think about who might be facing a loss of their home or are in danger? Do you have any advice that as this pandemic continues and we are still experiencing the impacts of it, any advice to share with folks? Molly, why don't you go first?
I think to kind of follow on what KaDeidra said, I think the first piece of advice is just to really reach out to Pisgah Legal, reach out to other community resources. It is so hard to parse right now what protections you might be eligible for, what resources there are. It's changing constantly. And frankly, a lot of the community resources are also pretty overwhelmed with the need. So it may be that the first call isn't going to get you what you need, but I would really encourage people to be persistent and look for that help, and also to look out for their neighbors who might need that help. We hear a lot about social distancing, but that doesn't mean that people can't be on the phone, can't be in touch, can't wave from the front yard and check on how people are doing. And I think that we're seeing a lot of people who maybe if they had reached out a little earlier would have had more options. It's often easier to solve these problems earlier than later. So I would just really encourage people to reach out to us or to other community resources to try to get the help that they need.
KaDeidra, anything to add to that advice?
Yeah, and so definitely to echo exactly what Molly said, I don't think it ever hurts to ask, especially your legal rights. So whether or not you just have a question, or maybe you were actually served with papers, or maybe your landlord's giving you a notice, verbal or written or otherwise, it never hurts to, reach out to Pisgah or just someone who can advise you on what your rights are and to help you better determine how you should proceed for you and your loved ones.
And just for folks out there, you can, Pisgah Legal, you can reach us at 828-253-0406 or online, pisgahlegal.org. We do have an apply online button. So if you think you might need our services, I encourage you to check that out. Also, a good resource is 211. You can call that number and they can connect you to all the different resources that exist beyond legal services, but whether that's food resources or other things. There is help out there, but sometimes it's just hard to find the right source of it. So good. So Molly, you've been at Pisgah Legal, what is it, 8+ years?
It's 9 years. Yeah.
Almost 9. Wow. So to do this work day in and day out, I think there must be a source of inspiration that keeps you going. Can you tell us more about what inspires you to do the work that you do at Pisgah Legal?
Yeah, I think a big part of what inspires me to do this work, and a lot of the attorneys here at Pisgah, is just this knowledge that the deck is really stacked against people. Our system is not fair, and the less resources you have, the less opportunities you have, and that that's true across the board, from financial resources to access to the justice system. But our clients really are pretty incredible at taking what is often a really unfair, unjust, stacked deck and making it work. I have clients who are in really rough housing situations with, they've lost their job, they got a bunch of kids at home that they're trying to do school with, and they're still ready to fight to make it work for their families and their kids. And if they're ready to fight, then we're here and ready to fight with them.
KaDeidra, you joined Pisgah Legal this summer, right?
Right. Yeah.
So it's been, I'm sure, an interesting entree into this world. What inspires you? What inspired you to join the organization and to keep with us? How are you finding that?
So on a personal note, I am a native of North Carolina. So, I was given the opportunity to go to college, go to law school, and gain a skill set. And I really couldn't think of any better way to show my gratitude for the opportunity to get that skill set than to pour it back into my community and the surrounding area. And then, to echo something that I've heard one of our managing attorneys say is that, Pisgah employs some really, really, really intelligent people, but not only intelligent, but compassionate, and who truly, truly fight for our neighbors in Western North Carolina. And beyond, my coworkers and colleagues, it's the people that we serve who are truly the physical embodiment of human resiliency. And it's hard to hear their stories and not be inspired to continue doing this work every day.
Thank you both for sharing that. I found that just the folks that I've met at Pisgah Legal, both our staff, our volunteers, because there's 300 volunteer attorneys that help support the work that y'all are doing, as well as non-attorneys like me and others that are making this happen. And it's really that kind of that I feel there's a community spirit that drives that work of wanting to come together and help people who are struggling. And that's been really inspirational from the staff side too. So, today is Giving Tuesday. That's why we're having this conversation. And Giving Tuesday is about that power of philanthropy, which can mean so many things. It can be about making a gift. It can be about volunteering. It can be about spreading the word. So I'd love for y'all to kind of share maybe what one thing is that you think our audience can do to support the work that Pisgah Legal is doing. KaDeidra, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that beyond, giving monetary gifts, social media is very, very, very important. So even if it's just, liking the pages, following Instagram, sharing, just to get the word out, if not to get that on the newsfeed of a donor, but to get our contact information to someone who could use our services. So, social media is very important, especially for Giving Tuesday. So.
Right. I think that's so important. And that goes back to something you all said earlier, just about, it's about, not only reaching out for the resources, but knowing that they exist. And so something we've been really trying to do is to get the audience out. And it's really, I think one thing we hear from clients a lot is how they heard about us is through word of mouth, right? So I think that spreading of the news that we have and everything is really powerful. Molly, what about you? What is one thing that our audience can do to participate in Giving Tuesday today?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like KaDeidra said, aside from donations, I think just being involved in your neighborhood and your community, and making sure people know that if they're facing a problem because of the pandemic, it may not sound like a legal problem at first, but they may have legal rights that impact their solutions. And also, people may be struggling who you wouldn't imagine. And so talking about the fact that these resources exist is really important, because you just never know who's going to need it and is going to reach out for help because you mentioned that these resources exist. So I think that's a really important way to participate in Giving Tuesday, and really every day.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you guys so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to chat about this. It's really, I think, interesting to kind of hear you all describe the work that you're doing, because understanding how legal aid can be an effective anti-poverty measure and to be helping people who are struggling to make ends meet is just really crucial to our work, and for folks understanding the power of legal aid and what that means. So just to wrap up, it is Giving Tuesday today, and Molly and KaDeidra gave you all some suggestions on how to support Pisgah Legal. If you do want to support us by making a monetary donation, we're excited to share that all donations today are being matched dollar for dollar by Roberts and Stevens and another generous donor, up to $12,500. So that is really fantastic. It's a way to double the impact of your giving. So you can go to pisgahlegal.org/give to make that donation. And we also have some fun giveaways today. So already we've given away a couple of tickets to the Biltmore Estate, which is fun. And there are also still giveaways happening today for gift certificates to Asheville Pizza and Brewing Company. And then our grand prize giveaway is a one-of-a-kind vase from East Fork Pottery. So we're so lucky to have this kind of community support from companies like Biltmore and Asheville Pizza and East Fork that really help us drive our work and be able to share some love with our donors and supporters. So encourage you to check all that out today. Throughout the day in our e-newsletter and social media, we'll be sharing more stories of impact. But just wanted to say thanks again to Molly and KaDeidra for joining us, and thanks to all of you for watching this and for being part of Giving Tuesday.